Welcome back to the Extra Rep Podcast, guys. I am Josh, and unfortunately, Liam has come down with something absolutely shocking, so he won't be joining us on this week's episode. But stay tuned. He will be back, of course, for next week's episode. So today, what we're going to talk about is a really simple one: how to lose 4 kilos in 6 weeks. So we've got a bit of a, checklist. We've got a bit of a system that I personally like to use when doing this. So I think we will obviously talk in future. We will do a podcast about, how to eat to do this, how to train to do this, and also how to live to do this as well. So think about today as like a bit of a broad overview of a checklist of what you actually need. And then we'll get into the nitty gritty a little bit more in future podcast episodes for the rest of the year. So when we talk about obviously weight loss, right? We're making sure with that 4 kilos in 6 weeks that it's fat loss, okay? So very big difference between, just being able to potentially go on a keto diet and after 3 days you've dropped 2.5 kilos on the scale, right? We want this to be fat loss, okay? So there's sort of 5 main things we talk about. So think about like a five main thing checklist, right? So you've got your calories, you've got your protein, you have your training, you have your steps, and you have your sleep. Now, these are the sort of 5 key areas that I generally focus on with my clients. And there's a big reason for that, because these are the 5 key rocks. It's very easy to go, okay, I'm focusing on protein, but I'm over on my calories, or I'm focusing on my training, but I'm not sleeping well. All of these things need to come to fruition for you to get the best result. And again, we know dropping 4 kilos in 6 weeks isn't necessarily easy, right? So our idea is to get the framework, or my idea is to get the framework for you guys to be able to actually do that. So let's start obviously with the first one, which is going to be calories. And like we all know, you need to be in a calorie deficit to lose weight, but that's obviously going to look different person to person, right? You can't just give every person a 1200 calorie diet and expect them to just go, okay, sweet, I'm just going to stick on it for the, however long, because chances are you're going to be super hungry, you're going to binge, you're going to restrict, and you're going to repeat that cycle. So when we talk about a deficit, we need it to be a sustainable deficit. So when we talk about sustainable, something you can complete over the 6 weeks without you getting like absolutely starving all the time. So you need to be hungry at times, right? That's no problem at all. But we need to make sure with the calories that we're not going too crazy. So let's use an example. Say someone's on 2,500 calories is their maintenance, right? Everyone is going to be different here, but I would probably set that person maybe somewhere between 1,800 and 2,000 calories. Now, the reason for that is, roughly on the scale, they'll probably lose 0.5 to 0.7 kilos a week just on that alone. And then once we increase their activity in steps, which we'll talk about, that'll probably get them that gold standard of sort of, 0.7 to 1 kilo of fat loss a week, which of course gives you a bit of wiggle room when we're talking about losing 4 kilos in 6 weeks. So in terms of calories, the real big thing is just thinking you don't want to go too aggressive straight away. I think it's really important that you set a position where you're still going to be able to fuel your sessions with your training. You're still going to be able to function like a human being. Yes, you'll be a bit hungry from time to time over that 6 week period. But again, if you make better choices with your food, which again, we'll talk about in the eating episode, then in terms of your calories, that is going to be the best way forward, is not putting yourself in some crazy severe deficit where your training gets affected, your sleep, your stress, everything gets affected to the point where your body's so stressed out of its mind and so hungry that it's not going to get to the adaptation we want, or it's going to make it really difficult to actually stick to. So that is the first thing, guys. We need to be actually be able to stick to this deficit over the 6 week period. Now, let's talk about protein, because of course, we know with calories, you have your protein, your carbs, and your fats. We're just going to talk about protein, and there's 3, main reasons for this. So when basically anyone starts consuming more protein, a couple of things happen. First is obviously it's going to help with your muscle protein synthesis, which is obviously building muscle tissue. Again, the more muscle we have, the less body fat we have. Obviously, we're going to be training in the gym consistently, right? Next is going to be the thermic effect of feeding. So when we talk about this is just about digesting food. So if you talk about actually digesting food in terms of just pure protein, probably about 15 to 25% is actually going to be basically digested or used as energy in the body. So basically what that means is if 20% of protein, like it actually requires a lot of digestion to go through. So whereas in carbs and fats, you're probably looking at like, 5 to 10 absolute max. Fats probably 0 to 5, carbs maybe 5 to sort of 10%. So it is something small, but by reducing the portions of carbs and fats and increasing the portions of protein, that is actually going to enable you to basically just burn a few more calories in the day. So it's very small, but it's going to add up over 6 weeks, right? That could be the difference between another, maybe 0.2 to 0.5 kilos or a little bit more improvement in your body composition, because again, there's going to be some muscle mass that is going to be attached with a higher protein diet. Third reason is basically when we talk specifically about protein breakdown, MPS, the last thing we're going to talk about is satiety. So really simply, if we can build 3-4 meals around protein, 30 to 40 grams, it's going to be a lot harder for you to then just go like binge on other stuff if you've already had protein, right? We know protein is probably the most satiating and filling macronutrient. So when we talk about protein and we hit our protein goal every single day as well as that calorie goal, that's going to give you, 80 to 90% of your nutrition if you can focus on those two things, because it basically makes it really hard to be like, okay, if I have to hit a goal of protein and a goal of calories, then carbs and fats have to go somewhere a little bit lower and be a bit more conservative. And that is exactly how you will, again, lose 4 kilos in 6 weeks. Now let's get into training. So really briefly with the training, I think when a lot of people get into fat, when they talk about fat loss training, right? They think high intensity interval training, circuits, sweating, all that stuff, right? I would actually say it's almost completely the opposite when we're looking, we're sort of looking at what we call minimum effective dose, right? So to put it simply, minimum effective dose is like the minimum number of, sets or exercises you need to progress without doing too much volume. So a lot of people come in, do 4, 5, 6 sets, like they'll do, classic chest bro workout, 6 exercises, 4 or 5 sets of each, and they've done about 25 working sets, and probably the first exercise, the first couple of exercises, done most of the work, and then they're just thrashing the muscle for the sake of not being able to recover. So there's plenty of stuff we can go on with training and recovery. What I would say is you want your intensity really high and your volume quite low. So a good approach I like to use with this sort of stuff is doing 2 sets. Both of those sets, in whatever rep range you want to make them hard, heavy, and push them to absolute close to, maybe 1 rep shy, if not on failure. And then all you need to do, come in the next time and you need to beat that. There's bonus points if you say you're coming in 4 days a week, and if you can train each muscle group twice through maybe pick 2 exercises, right? So chest, maybe pick a chest press and a chest fly. Back, pick a row and a lat pull down. Hamstrings, pick a Romanian deadlift and a lying leg curl. You get the picture, right? We want to go through all of that musculature. We want to hit that twice a week ideally, and that's going to give us the best opportunity for growth in the muscle, but also that will again turn into that body recomposition where more muscle, less body fat. Again, we'll still be losing on the scale, but we'll be maintaining, if not building, a bit of lean muscle tissue, which is exactly what we want. And that'll be the difference between someone losing 4 kilos and almost looking worse because they've lost all muscle, and someone losing 4 kilos in 6 weeks and then going, oh shit, I look completely different in the mirror because I've actually probably gained a little bit of muscle and I've dropped 6 kilos or 4 to 6 kilos of body fat in the process. So really, really important with your training. In terms of training frequency, don't stress too much. Ideally, 3 days a week is probably a really, really good minimum. If you can do that, move up to 5. 3 to 5 is probably your sweet spot. If you can only do 2, that's okay as well. Like I said, I'd just make sure that you space them out maybe a Monday to Thursday, and that you can also make sure you're probably just doing the same workout, same full body workout, hit 5 or 6, main muscle groups, stick to more compound exercises, and all you're going to do is look to get those extra reps or a little bit more weight every single week and progress that properly for 6 weeks. Now we get into sleep. Stress will be one thing that we'll talk about in the lifestyle one of the pod in a couple of weeks. But in terms of sleep, so again, there's a lot of research around. In terms of sleep, people who are highly stressed, who don't sleep as well, they don't recover as well. And we talk about recovery, again, it comes down to training. So you have your internal and your external sort of stress and recovery. And again, so if we're training way too much, there's too much volume, we're not eating enough and our stress is high and we don't sleep, then we're just going to go into a crash course really, really quickly. And that's why people stagnate and they really struggle with their results. So When we talk specifically about sleep, there's a few things that we need to do. Firstly, it's just going to be making sure you get between 7 and 9 hours a night consistently. So that doesn't mean like, oh, Monday I went to bed at 10, Tuesday I went to bed at 12, Wednesday I went to bed at 8. We want to try and keep the same sleep and wake time. So when we talk about sleeping, talk about waking up, ideally within an hour, right? So obviously on the weekend, we know it might be a bit different, but still want to try and get a similar wake time. So for me, I'm normally up around the 5:30 mark. On the weekends, I generally don't let myself sleep in till like 6:30 is sort of where I'll still get up. And normally, again, once you've reset that circadian rhythm, you'll naturally just start waking up around that time as well. And that will again lead to higher sleep quality. Now, the more sleep quality you have, of course, that's going to affect our muscle growth, that's going to affect our hunger, that's going to affect our mood. A lot of studies have been shown 8 hours compared to 5 hours sleep. The 8-hour group has always lost more body fat and gained more lean muscle tissue. So something you really need to start implementing, get off your fucking phone. I know it's really easy to just sit there and scroll, but the more you scroll, the less melatonin you're going to have. Less melatonin you have in your body, the worse quality of sleep you're going to have. So try get out for some morning sunlight, making sure at night, cool dark room, making sure it's at a good temperature so you're not too hot, not too cold, and then making sure the bed is literally just for sleep and sex. That's all you need, right? No TVs in there, no other, blue lights. Get off your blue light, get off your TV, and actually take your time, rest, recover, and then you'll be in a much, much better position to lose a lot more body fat, and you will look way, way better in the mirror in the process as well. Lastly, we're going to talk about steps and activity. So when we talk about steps, really, really easy way of first doing it with someone who wants to lose 4 kilos in 6 weeks is just go, okay, do more steps than you're doing now. So most of you probably have an iPhone, Apple Health, Samsung Health, whatever it is. You can look on your phone and look at the last couple of weeks, and you'll be able to look at a step average throughout the week. So of course they're going to vary. Maybe Monday you did 10,000, Tuesday maybe you did 2, or you maybe did more on weekends, less on weekdays, or vice versa. Now, what I want you to do is add 2,000 steps a day to that average number. So let's say you've done 70,000, right? That means over the course of the average day, you've done 7,000. So what you can do, you can add 2,000 every single day, and you want to try and get to 84,000 a day. So again, if one day you go under, it's okay. Just try and make it up the next day. So you're looking at that weekly average over time. If we can look at that weekly average and make sure that that gets hit, that makes sure our output's the same, and that makes sure our fat loss calories are able to do the work. The problem that most people get into is they go into a fat loss phase, right, with the calories. After 2 weeks, they go, I'm starting to plateau, things aren't working. And what's actually happened is their steps have just dropped off a cliff. Like they've averaged, 8 to 10,000, and they look and their last week was 5 to 6,000, right? So they've looked at, okay, there is not enough energy going out in that aspect, which is why steps are so important to keep just an average and try and bump that up slowly over time. And again, one of the levers we can pull when it comes to adaptation if things start slowing down. But if you do these things properly with steps, you will find you will actually start feeling better because you're probably out in the sun more. As you move, you generally start getting more energy. I know if I sit there on the laptop for a couple of hours, I go out for a walk, I will start getting more energy. I'll come back and I'll be more energized. So I think for a lot of people, the less you move, the less you want to move, and the more you move, the more you will want to move. And again, the body likes movement. It likes getting out in the sun. We're not designed to just sit there and do nothing. So steps is a super important one that we want to keep consistent every single week across those 6 weeks. So recapping, we need 5 major things when it comes to losing 4 kilos in 6 weeks. We need to make sure that we have a slight calorie deficit. We need to make sure that we're hitting a daily protein target. 2 grams per kilo is probably a perfect one for you guys. We need to make sure we're training ideally 3 to 5 times a week, but making sure it's a lower volume program and making sure we are progressing the logbook every single week. Then we need to make sure we are sleeping good quality sleep, 7 to 9 hours a night. And lastly, in terms of steps, think about what you're at now, look at your averages across the last couple of weeks, and I want you to bump that up by 2,000 a day and then hit your weekly average. If you do all those 5 things across the next 6 weeks, I can almost guarantee that you're going to be able to lose 4 kilos in 6 weeks. You'll look better, you'll feel better, you'll have more energy, and you'll be a brand new human being. Now, if you need help with this, if you're not sure where to start, this is exactly what I do with my clients. So if you're interested, if you need any help, just reach out to me at Action Fitness Nutrition on Instagram. You can apply. We can get you in the transformation program where we guarantee you will lose 4 kilos in 6 weeks, or I will personally coach you for free until you do. But until next time, guys, see you in the next podcast.